Hello, this is Sandy Petersen, though you do not see me, so I guess it could be a robot mimicking my voice. But that's appropriate because this is, as you can tell from the image, the robot quiz. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you this quiz about robots, and there's a scoring procedure, but it's kind of on the honor model because I don't have any other way of scoring it. But you can boast to each other in the comments about how great you did in the robot quiz, or you can cheat and say you got them all right, or whatever you want to do, really. If you do get a high score legitimately, let me know, and if I see you at a convention, I will buy you a drink of your choice, within some reason. No blue whiskeys, for example, you know, or like $10,000 tequilas, but you know, anything reasonable. Okay, so let's go on with this quiz. So we'll go to the next page, 1 point each. So these next robots are going to be 1 point robots. So give yourself 1 point if you get it right. So the first one, and really, if you don't get this robot right, you shouldn't probably even be like taking a robot quiz because it's kind of sad. But speaking of which, I want to mention something. So when I was a kid, I like dinosaurs, and I like spaceships, and I like monsters, and I like tanks, and I like airplanes, and, you know, I liked aliens and all that kind of stuff. But unlike my friends, I didn't really like robots that much. And this is not a tale of how I learned to love robots, because I really didn't. Robots to me were always kind of lame. I never thought they were that cool. And I don't know what went wrong in my geek DNA to keep me from loving robots like everyone else. But something is deep in my soul to doing that. So I don't usually have robots in games. Cyborgs I like, so it makes no sense, right? Anyway, so this is, of course, the famous robot from a movie called Star something. And I'm not even going to tell you the name of the robot because I'm too embarrassed that I actually included it in the quiz. But everyone gets that point, right? On to the next one. So this is probably the very most important robot ever made for movies and films. And he is 1, 2, 3... Robbie the Robot. He first appeared in the movie Forbidden Planet, which is pretty great and well worth watching, and it has some amazing internal scenes of the extinct Krell. And one of the best parts is that you never actually see a Krell because they went extinct a long time ago. Now, he was super influential. He appeared on The Addams Family. He appeared in the Columbo detective series. He was even on Lost in Space, where he battles the robot that appears in that. He showed up 3 times in Twilight Zone. He was up in films and shows into the late 70s. Now, you'll see other robots in this list with glass bubbles on their head, and it all comes from Robbie. Oh, yeah, his show he did after this was called a TV show called Invisible Boy, and he shows up in that. And interestingly, in Invisible Boy, which takes place in, like, the current, well, modern 1950s, right? Robbie the Robot is supposed to be the same robot from Forbidden Planet who fell through a time warp to the 50s and now helps the kid Invisible Boy, like, cheat on his homework and stuff, because what else would you use a super robot for than that? On to the next slide, number 3. Okay. So this robot is one of the many robots influenced by R2-D2, because that R2-D2 was like the first cute robot that everyone loved, and so then everyone thought they had to have a cute robot. Specifically this show, which is 1, 2, 3... Buck Rogers in the 25th century, where they added Twiki to be their cute robot, and it kind of fails because he looks... I don't think he's cute. If you think he's cute, you can be different from me, but I don't think he's cute. And that hairstyle, which is a page boy? A Mo haircut? I don't know. Anyway, and I don't like that he has a medallion instead of an implant. Anyway, everything about him I don't like, and especially the part where he's clearly an attempt to have a cute robot just like R2-D2. But R2-D2 doesn't look humanoid, it looks functional. Looks like an appliance, you know, and that's what's cool about him. So let's go on to the next slide, number 4, and we go, and here it is. And probably a lot of you got this guy, because he's from a show that everyone has watched except maybe me very much. And this is, of course, 1, 2, 3, Tom Servo from Mystery Science Theater 3000. And the reason I haven't watched it much, I do love watching old bad movies with my friends making fun of the movies, but it's been my experience that I'm watching a crappy old movie with some friends that the comments they make and the remarks are funnier than anything the MST3K guys do. Not saying they aren't funny, because they are, right? But I just like having real people do it is cooler, you know? But I guess if you don't have friends, or like a couple times when I've been on a trip, I've watched an MST3K because there's no one around and they're like artificial friends to watch it. But one of the cool things about Tom Servo is not only does he have a gumball machine for a head, but the glass bubble idea is clearly influenced by Robbie the robot, though here for comic purposes. So that's cool because yay, Robbie, he actually influenced the way this thing looks. And now we will go to slide 4. And there it is, and this is almost as sane as a robot as Robbie, and he's clearly influenced heavily by Robbie. And his name is 123, tragically just the robot. And he's often ruled by a bad guy doing things, though sometimes he is, used for the course of good. He's pretty cool looking. I liked him a lot as a kid. Of course, I was a big fan of Lost in Space. It wasn't as good as Star Trek, but it had its moments, Of course, it had, its bad moments, too. Like the Killer Carrot. So we will now move on to the next slide, number 6. These are all one-pointers. You're supposed to kind of know these things. So slide 6 is... Again, because I'm not up with pop culture, I haven't seen this very many times, but I do know who this guy is, and he is 1, 2, 3, Bender, the evil from Futurama, and I think it's super awesome that Futurama knows that robots are evil, because of course they are. Just listen to Elon Musk. And now we'll go on to slide 7. Still 1 point. And this is technically a subtype of robot called the android. And we know who it is, 321, and of course it is Data from Star Trek The Next Generation. Now, androids are robots. They are fully artificial beings just made to look like a person for whatever reason. I guess so you feel more comfortable around them. And I assume the reason that they gave Data yellow eyes is so that you can tell he's an android and at a glance and you aren't fooled, or maybe it's because there's something in the yellow tint that worked for the eyeball cameras they made of him. Who knows? Doesn't matter. I'll bet that he shouldn't smoke, though. I'm sure it's just as bad for androids as it is for humans. We're going to go on to number 8 now. And this is 3, 2, 1. My kids loved this. My friends loved this. But again, I didn't know enough about robots to care about it. But this is, of course, one of the great robots of modern times. Optimus Prime, who fights the evil Decepticons. Who, as near as I can tell, are functionally very similar to the Transformers. They both turn into vehicles and then into humanoid robots. And I'm not sure what the advantage is except for selling toys. But hey, there's nothing wrong with selling toys, right? Right. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is an interesting case. Right here, this is obviously a robot, and you probably know what it is. 3, 2, 1. It is, of course, the T-800. Now, the interesting thing about the Terminator franchise is that it's arguable that the Terminator himself could be considered a cyborg because it has a human body. But it's also clear that the human body that it has is purely to conceal the robot. It's not plugged into the robot part. Like, when they burn off the human form in the first movie, there's a fully functioning robot. It didn't need in fact, the human part dies in the first movie, and it starts to rot, and it smells bad. It's not dead very long enough to actually rot away, but it smells bad. And it's because the human part is purely to conceal, has no visible function. So it's not like a cyborg, because cyborgs actually have, like, RoboCop is a cyborg. His brain works, one of his legs works, I think. One of his limbs works. These other things that are working, so he's kind of plugged in. It's a human biomechanical matrix. But the Terminators are just mechanical, though sometimes they're encased in skin. So I would say they are not ever cyborgs. They are robots. And in the case of the cover of the human skin, it's like a fake android, kind of. So anyway, there it is. So next, we'll move on. Here we go. So, this is the last of our first 10 that are 1 point each. The rest are going to be more. And in case you don't know, in this image, the tall one is the robot. The short one is not the robot. And it's not a coincidence they look kind of similar. And 3, 2, 1. This is, of course, GORT. the robot from the day the Earth stood still. I was disappointed in the remake because one of the cool things about the original Day the Earth Stood Still is that it was actually about nuclear war, that we had nukes, so we had to be stopped. Whereas in the new one, it was like, we have global warmings and environmental accidents, so we had to be stopped, which seems kind of like, would an alien care that much about? I can see not wanting to bring nuclear war out into the cosmos, but global warming, seriously? I'm not saying global warming is a good thing, I just don't think it's hurting other planets, you know what I mean? Anyway, there's a hint in the movie that the alien, who is humanoid, doesn't actually have control over the robot, which is pretty cool, I think. So there's GORT. He's super powerful. He's literally able to destroy the world. And there it is. So now we'll move on from number 10 to the moderate. These are harder. They're 2 points each. If you get one of these before I show the name after counting 3, 2, 1, you get 2 points. So get a piece of notepaper out, guys, if you haven't got it yet. Ready? Okay, let's go. Okay, this is, of course, an android, not a robot, because you can tell, because the boobs, you know, and blonde hair and stuff. So this movie is 3, 2, 1, GALAXINA, and the robot's name is also GALAXINA. And this is pretty much a terrible movie. It has lots of topless scenes of robots, I guess, and idiotic subplots like aliens that worship motorcycles. But when you see this, you know... Well, here's how to tell if you would like GALAXINA. What is your reaction to hearing the name Captain Cornelius Butt? Did you laugh? Did you snort with contempt? Did you hope that no one caught you being amused? Do you ask in amazement, was that supposed to be a joke? Because your reaction to that name is a good prediction of your reaction to GALAXINA. So if you kind of liked the name Captain Cornelius Butt as a joke, then you will like GALAXINA. And if you don't, then it may not be for you. On to number 12. Okay, woohoo! This is the first one that's actually a horror movie. For those who are unaware, it takes place in a mall, and it is called 3, 2, 1... Chopping Mall. And if you got either the name Protector or the word Chopping Mall right, you know, it's cool. So there's more than one of these bots, and basically the mall has decided that it is that to stop shrinkage after hours, the best thing to do is have deadly killer robots with blades run around chopping up potential burglars and shoplifters after hours, than to lose like a few Gucci purses. So I assume that this takes place in a parallel universe where there is no such thing as a lawsuit. So that's only a possible explanation. Anyway, so also awesome, the shopping mall gets these killer robots without telling the people that are going to be in the shopping mall, and a bunch of college-age kids who work in some of the things hang out in the mall after hours. It is the craziest security system ever made, and so the robots are killing these college-age kids hanging out, stealing things in the mall, so they're pretty unsympathetic and just fun to see them killed. The robots aren't too scary, which is kind of a drawback. Basically, it's a monster movie that wants to be a slasher movie, and you can precisely tell exactly the time it was made, because one of the kids goes to buy a pack of smokes from a vending machine, which it's the vending machine for, and he goes, $1.20, it's $1.25 for it. So you can tell when it was made, because like when were smokes $1.25 for about 1 year, and it was 1986. So now we're gonna move on to scene 13. You should all know this thing. This actually almost made me like robots, because it was so cool. And this is, of course, 3, 2, 1. Maximilian from the Black Hole. I also like this because it has Roddy MacDowell, and I was angry when he got, spoiler alert, when Roddy MacDowell got killed kind of early in the movie. Not super early, so you get to see some of them, but I wanted him to be alive the whole movie because I love Roddy MacDowell, and instead we got like dumb other guys I didn't care about. But we did get to see Maximilian, and he was cool. And he floats, which is cool. And he has rotors, which are cool, and he's just cool. The Black Hole has lots of features of it that are worth watching and understanding, and it's kind of goofy, but the goofiness doesn't destroy the goodness, let's just say. On to number 14. So here we are. This is a 2-pointer. It's a modern one. I'm sure you all know what this is. So 3, 2, 1. Maybe if you don't, then now you'll know if you want to see this movie or not. It is Ultron from the Avengers Age of Ultron. And that's their version of Ultron. So I guess he's okay. It's kind of interesting because it uses things that they didn't do in the original Ultrons. Like he's able to duplicate his consciousness to put in other robot bodies. That's kind of makes sense knowing what we do now about software, but I kind of preferred Ultron being a robot instead of software. But hey, I didn't do the movie, and that's probably just as well. So let's now go to the next movie, number 15, which is one of my favorite movies, and it is 1, 2, 3, Westworld. And this is Yul Brynner, who is he doesn't really have a name. He's the gunslinger. The idea behind Westworld, as probably almost everyone here knows, is that you go into this cool Western town and play around, and this guy comes in to have a gunfight with you, and he's programmed to draw just a little bit slower than you do so you can always beat him. But something goes haywire, and he starts drawing at his actual speed, which is, of course, unstoppable. So he starts stalking the heroes through all the different theme parks, which is great. And one of the best things is he still has his gunslinger programming, so he catches the guy, in an unsafe place, and he doesn't just shoot him, he has to go draw and then shoot him, because that's how a gunslinger works. Anyway, Yul Brynner's good too, and he's an actor who was really fabulous in the 50s and 60s, and I loved him, and for some reason he isn't as famous now, and he should be. Because not only does he have a really interesting look, and he's bald, which of course I love, apparently he was from Sakhalin Island, which I think is now completely inhabited by giant Russian secret institutions and cryptids. On to number 16. Ah, yes. A fabulous, fabulous robot. You can't tell from this picture, but this robot is, of course, hundreds of feet high. Because 3, 2, 1, it is MECHANI-KONG from the movie King Kong Escapes, which is especially brilliant because, see, the bad guys find out they have to mine this special ore from this huge island. Well, what is the best way to do mining operations of a dangerous substance on an island? Obviously, is to make a giant mechanical robot shaped like an ape and have it do it, which is what they do. And then, of course, later on it gets to fight the actual King Kong, which is also pretty great. And if you haven't seen King Kong Escapes and you like really goofy giant monster movies, have I got a movie for you? And yes, it's this one. And we'll go on to number 17 now. So this is from a TV show, and 3, 2, 1... it's Red Dwarf. This is KRYTEN from Red Dwarf, and Red Dwarf is a mostly comic TV show from England, which my favorite part is actually not the robot or the holographic character, but the fact that one of the characters is an evolved cat called Cat, because the cats were on the ship during the million years the hero was in hibernation. He's the last human, and the cat evolved to intelligence, but it's still a cat, and so it's completely useless all the time because it's a cat, but it looks like a person. Anyway, KRYTEN from Red Dwarf. If you haven't seen it and you like clever British comedies and you like science fiction, then this is the movie that they made with you in mind. And we will now move on to the next movie, or next show, number 18. And this, I gotta admit, I have not actually seen this film, but the image of the robot was so striking I had to include it. And 3, 2, 1, it is Ava, the robot from Ex Machina. So I have no idea if this is good or bad. I cannot recommend or not recommend it. All I can recommend really is this one picture of the robot because it's cool. And now we'll move on to number 19. Ah, yes. Okay, so this robot. So imagine if RoboCop had a mentally handicapped cousin that no one ever talked about. Well, what you would have is 3, 2, 1, R.O.T.O.R. And R.O.T.O.R looks like a cop in a black leather jacket, so he looks like a person, but he does get his skin burned off because they wanted to copy the Terminator, I guess, and have him see the robot underneath. But you can see how much less cool he looks than the Terminator. And R.O.T.O.R just all around is just incredibly, incredibly stupid. And when I say it's stupid, I mean it is stupid on the scale of this may be one of the 10 or 20 stupidest movies ever made. And as a result, I recommend it without any worries. Everyone should see this movie. It's so dumb. You need to see it. And it's dumb on every level. For example, there's a scene where they're in Dallas. It takes place in Dallas, which I love because, of course, I live in Dallas. And they say, "Meet me at the lake." And I was like, the lake? what is the lake they're going to meet at? There's like 7 artificial lakes around Dallas, and there is a town called Lake Dallas, but there's not actually a lake called Lake Dallas, so go figure. I mean, I live on one of these lakes, Lake Ray Hubbard, but there's no lake to meet at. You can't meet at the lake. It doesn't make sense. Another thing that's really great is, so R.O.T.O.R comes into the back of a diner, okay, and he looks like a cop. I mean, he's wearing a cop uniform with his black leather jacket, and he walks in, and there's no evidence he's anything but a cop, and the cook immediately attacks him with a knife, and R.O.T.O.R kills him. And then he goes to the dining room, and the people in the dining room immediately attack him. And so it's up. And earlier in the movie, they talk about the fact that they're making R.O.T.O.R because hundreds of cops are killed every day in Dallas, which seems like a super dangerous job then. But you can see why. If wherever a cop goes, they're instantly attacked by people. So anyway, yeah, so this is pretty much exactly what it's like in Dallas all the time, as you can tell from my description. And this is R.O.T.O.R, and you should absolutely go see it, and it's super dumb. And listen carefully to the dialogue, because the dialogue dumbs it down even more. So yeah, R.O.T.O.R. On to movie 20. And, yeah, alas, I had to include this, but it makes me kind of sad. 3, 2, 1... It's from Rocky IV. It's called SICO, and our hero calls it by a girly name and flirts with it, which makes me especially sad. And it brings him drinks, and it's kind of a feature of the 80s where apparently they thought we were going to have pretty good robots really soon, and so they kept. In the 80s, there was an outbreak of movies that had robots that looked like a modern robot that was something reasonable, like we could have robots like this, which of course we can't. Right? Even now we don't have robots like this that can do anything useful. So they grossly underestimated how long it would take to get robots. And I guess that's okay because it meant we got things like this. But maybe this isn't so great because Rocky IV just overall was not the greatest of the Rocky movies. Let's move on from this because it depresses me to see. I do like the bug head though. Number 21. Now, 21 through 30 are 3 points each, so these are really good. So these are going to be hard, and if you don't get them, don't feel bad because most people won't get them. You might get 1 or 2 of them just like because you do. So first one is number 21, and whoa, look at that! And by the way, see that guy in the back? That is none other than Bela Lugosi. How cool is that? So 3, 2, 1. If you don't know, this movie is or TV show. Not a TV show. It's a serial. Like you'd watch a movie in the 30s and 40s, and before the movie started, you see like a half-hour episode of some serial. So you had to go back to the movie theater every week to get all the films in the serial. But now, of course, you can buy the whole series. So it's kind of, so now if you watch it now, it's kind of like a 6-hour long movie broken into 12 half-hour parts, each of which starts explaining what happened in the last one. So it's a little bit repetitive, but it has this awesome robot. And sadly, so the face in this robot does not animate. It's just solidly fixed in that face, and that means that the mad scientist who made this robot did that face just to make his robot look scary. And he's quite insane, and he's played by Bela Lugosi. And although the robot does things in the movie, it's not really about the robot. It's about the mad scientist and his terrible evil plans as the master criminal. And the robot just shows up once in a while, and of course is unstoppable because he's a robot. So it's cool to see a 1930s robot that looks like that. And now we're going on to number 22. Okay, I know you're wondering what happened and why there's a newt instead of a robot here, but it is supposed to be a robot. And if you're saying this looks like a really cheap movie filmed in the junkyard, boy, are you right. And it is 3, 2, 1. Star Odyssey from 1979. And this is Tiki. And Star Odyssey is a super terrible Italian movie made in an attempt to copy Star Wars. And every single level it fails, except this robot is kind of adorable, but not adorable enough to actually make you want to see the movie. Anyway, if you want to see old, crappy Italian movies, you could do better than this one. And we'll move on to number 23. Yeah. So this is fabulous. This is from the 60s, and it is 3, 2. I know it looks like he's showing a vest, but he's not. That's his robot body. It's 3, 2, 1. This is HYHIE, the robot from the TV show Get Smart, which I watched a lot as a kid, which was kind of interesting because it was a parody of a spy TV show. And really, there weren't that many spy TV shows. There was a couple, you know, and some of the things that it was parodying were already kind of half parodies, like the Avengers. But I guess it might have been trying to parody The Man from U.N.C.L.E. But then, like, this last 2 seasons of Man from U.N.C.L.E. were already parodying The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So it's like television can never do a spy show, or hardly ever do a spy show that's not a parody. So it's kind of weird. I guess 24 wasn't a parody, but man alive, their senses of humors are weird in the 60s, which explains a lot, I suppose. Okay, move on to number 24. Oh yeah. So that is, in fact, Frank Langella on the right, who was always good, who was Skeletor in the He-Man movie. And again, this is an example from the 80s that we were on the verge of actual working robots, and we made movies promising that. And so the robots are trying to look authentic, like there'd actually be a robot that looked like this. And this is 3, 2, 1. Yeah, it's just called Robot. A lot of movies are called Robot. So this is Robot and Frank, and one of the great things about this, I know this is not the 80s, this is 2012, but it's still the idea that we had working robots. It's a heist movie with Frank Langella and the robot, so that's good. So this robot does not feel it has to obey laws. And now we'll move on to number 24 with one of my favorite robots ever. Although, like I said, I don't like robots that much, but if I had to like robots, I would like this one because that's what it looks like. Is that great or what? Well, either you know it or you don't. But if you know it, 3, 2, 1, and it is Devil Girl from Mars. And the robot is named CHANI, which I think sounds like a girl's name. So this might be a girl robot. Now, the Devil Girl, there is actually a Devil Girl from Mars, and she wants to kidnap men and take them back to Mars because I guess Mars ran out. Also, the robot looks like an old cell phone, so that's really good. Also, we learn, and those of you from Scotland be proud, because we find out that Scotland apparently has the best breeding stock of all of Earth, because that's where they land, in Scotland, to get the men from there. So yeah, all that is stuff that is worth knowing about. And I'm sure the Scots are proud, as they should be, and this robot is great, as you can see, and there's a Devil Girl from Mars in it, which is also good. All done in the year before I was born. On to the next movie, number 26. So this is a horror movie, like a couple others have been, with a killer, obviously a killer robot. And it's interesting because it tries to be kind of realistic about the killer robot. Like, it can't do things that are extreme. Like, it's not like the Terminator is just like fantasy, right? But this robot is not like that. And this is 3, 2, 1... Hardware. And the robot's called Mark 13, and it kind of assembles itself from parts in this girl's apartment and goes after her. So it's like a murderer inside your apartment movie, except the murderer is a robot. So I can't decide if I like it or not. When I watch it, I am always of 2 opinions. Perhaps you can decide for me by watching it, or by not watching it and saying it's obviously great or it's obviously not great. But anyway, Hardware. And it's not super distant in the future, which is part of the deal, right? It is in the future because, you know, it is. But okay, so anyway, on to number 27. And number 27 is one of my favorite movies. And here's the thing. So this movie is actually a Soviet movie. That may give you a hint. And if it does, 3, 2, 1... Planeta Bor. It's actually called Planeta Bor in Russian. This is a Russian movie, a Soviet movie, and it's been turned into there's 3 different English language versions. Okay? Usually called something like Planet of Prehistoric Women, even though Planeta Bor doesn't actually have any prehistoric women. But if you are Roger Corman, you add prehistoric women to it, then you have the same thing. Anyway, the robot's called John. It is not all good. It is not all bad. It does things for the team. No one thinks it's anything other than a machine. It's okay to leave it behind to die because it's just a robot, which I kind of liked. Go see the original Planeta Bor if you can find it. I also recommend the movie, though it doesn't have a robot, First Spaceship on Venus, which is an East German Polish science fiction film behind the Iron Curtain about a trip to Venus, which is really good. It also has a strong argument against war, which I wish that the modern Russians would listen to. So there's that. Okay, number 27. Now we're going to go on to number 28. And here it is. I saw this movie and I didn't like it at the time because I thought they were ripping off Alien, but I like it a lot more now. And this movie is 3, 2, 1, Saturn III with Kirk Douglas. And Hector the robot is a smart killer robot it's not kind of not his fault that he's a killer, because it's sort of like Frankenstein, he got the wrong brain in him or the wrong programming, so he's like programmed by an insane guy, so he's a little bit insane, but he's trying to do the right thing. There's a really creepy scene where this girl gets a metal splinter in her eye, and so this robot, which you, the viewer, knows is defective, is going to pluck the splinter out of her eye, and you're just terrified something awful is going to happen. And the scene is done very, very well. I liked it a lot. Also, you may wonder, look, the robot's head's super small. How can it be smart? Well, of course, it doesn't have to have the brain in its head. It can have it anywhere. In fact, it has a cylinder in its body full of brain tissue. I guess technically you could argue this is a cyborg because it actually has human brain tissue, except in a huge tube. It has like enough brain matter in there to be like 20 brains, so it's really smart. And I don't know why it has to have chest muscles or stomach muscles, but whatever. And it falls in love with a girl, which is portrayed only as bad in this case. But it is a cyborg because it has a brain, but nothing else is a human part, so maybe it's not really a cyborg. I guess, to me, a cyborg has to have more than just the brain be human or animal. It has to have something else too, but it didn't. Anyway, Saturn III, it's not exactly an alien ripoff. It does a lot of other things, but, you know, there it is. Next movie is number 29. And this is an interesting one because it's an alien invasion movie. 3, 2, 1. And it is Target Earth, and this is the alien robot. And the thing that's cool is that it's an alien invasion movie with these evil killer robots, but there's also a human who's a serial killer in it, who's killing people, a murderer. And so there's like this subplot of a serial killer along with the robot, and it's just like this weird thing. I suppose Saturn III kind of has that too, because although the robot was programmed by a murderer, there's also like the murderer. So, you know, you have both of them. Anyway, Target Earth, a serial killer, and robots that looks like they can't raise the arm high enough to grab you, but it's okay. And they have little short legs, which are kind of adorable. So we'll go on to number 30. This is the last one, the last of our shows. The last 3 points you get. Here it is. And this is from a TV show that you probably don't remember, and it's called 3, 2, 1, My Living Doll. 2 seasons. AF79 is the name. I don't expect you to remember that. So one of the things that was cool is that in this sitcom, the robot didn't have emotions for a really long time, though it looks like, you know, a cute girl, which was kind of interesting that she didn't have any emotions, because I think that was neat. They eventually started giving her some. I thought they kind of jumped the shark then. Also, it's interesting, the male lead, Robert Cummings, they had to switch male leads because the original guy got kicked off the show because he was addicted to meth. So, like, if you want to be in a TV show, don't do meth because you will lose your job, is what I have to say about that. Add up your points, see how many you got, and it's a potential of 180 points. And if you got 180 points, then I will know you were lying. But if you got some number less than that, let us know in the section below, and we'll be proud of you. Proud, I say. So there we are. See you next week, and do not forget to buy my awesome stuff because it keeps me in business. And because you like me and you want me to be happy, right? So let's just work from there.